Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Loss of Lieutenant. On tonight's episode, it's actually going to be a spotlight, so a shorter form episode where we have brought Nick back into the studio, or my lounge room, to go over some more of the missions that were submitted in the quarterly challenge for the custom missions. We've already done, or you and Val have already gone over the top 5 and some of the mechanics, but now we want to sort of dive into some of basically the honourable mentions, which didn't make the top 5, but we wanted to talk about for various reasons.
Yeah, so basically these are the ones that had interesting mechanics that we wanted to discuss. We won't necessarily go into the detail we did last episode, and I guess we had a lovely discussion right before this and then started recording. Some of these are excellent missions that will be in the tournament on the weekend, and some of them definitely need work. But the goal of this is to highlight those interesting mechanics that we hope other people will catch on to and possibly make other revisions of or new missions based on them.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said in the last episode, there was 36 submissions. It was really difficult for us to narrow them down to our top 5.
Oh, yes.
And these are the ones that we wish we could have had in the top 5, but you know, we could be here. We could do several episodes on this, just going over every mission. But we wanted to definitely have this bonus episode to go over some of our sort of favorite funny missions.
Yeah, these were all ones that fell into one of our top 5s.
Yeah,
but not enough of them, and we had to make a cut at 5.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get stuck straight into it. So for those of you who are watching along at home, we have a demolition run up on the screen. And first of all, I would like to say as well, thank you so much, Nick, for your editing skills on these missions. Now, most of our submissions were really well done, really well edited, and had the CB format mostly down pat. But Nick has run his eye over it and brought them all into this kind of format for ease for us tonight going through. So thanks very much for doing that. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And the packet with all of these in them should be out before this episode is out.
Yes, hopefully, yes. We still have to do the random winner for the quarter, so maybe stay tuned for that one. Perhaps when we get to it, I don't know, because we've already done the draw, so in secret, but we can maybe get to that when we hit that particular mission. All right, so first of all, we've got demo run. So this was sent in to us by Harrison Linder, who's from South Australia. Actually, he's coming to BCB. He just signed up, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him because this mission is really fun. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So read this mission the first time and just got nostalgia for back in high school playing Counter-Strike, and which is appropriate because that's what the author said they were looking for, is that countdown tension of the bomb runs in FPS games. The unique thing about this mission is how it does the bombs and how the timers work. So you get 2 bombs at the start, and you have to place them on buildings in your opponent's almost deployment zone. It's a little bit more flexible now.
16 inches outside of 16 inches from the edge of their deployment zone. So that first 16 inches.
Yeah, so 16 inches from the board edge, and it's 12-inch deployment zone. Yes. So it's like deployment plus 4.
Yes, that's right.
And when you place it, then you get, I believe, 3 armed counters on the bomb.
2.
Oh, 2.
Yeah,
yes.
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those tick up or down depending on who's playing with the bomb. So at the start of every player's turn, you add an armed counter to it. Mm-hmm. And if it gets up to 4, it explodes. Congratulations. The opponent can try to counteract this by disarming it. And it's not just as simple as click, it's done, remove it. You have to remove armed counters.
That's right, yes.
So it's going to take multiple attempts. Diffuse bomb.
Diffuse bomb is the skill, yeah.
Yeah, so each successful, you remove 1 armed counter, which delays the explosion, but doesn't prevent it unless you get it all the way down to 0 armed counters, in which case it's removed.
It's removed, yeah. Yes, that's the diffuse, and then you can plant the bomb by using a specialist who's carrying it, There is a bonus to engineer and forward observers, which is great. We like this. Seeing this forward observer bonus is good. I don't know if you guys discussed it in the last episode, but there's a few of those.
Yeah, there were some more forward observer bonuses and some that really singled them out and gave them special powers.
Yes,
because yes, they're kind of the ones that are like a specialist operative, except for they are spelled differently.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see the forward observer bonus getting a bit more love. On this mission, one of the important parts of this mission, which we haven't touched on, is who gets the bombs.
Yes.
So it's a standard 12-inch deployment zone. There's no, I'll show it up on the screen here. Standard 12-inch deployment zone. There's no objectives per se, but once you finish deploying. There is the bombs. Yeah. So each player starts the game with 2 friendly bomb tokens. Bombs must be represented by 25mm bomb tokens. At the end of the deployment phase, in deployment order, each player nominates up to 2 models inside the deployment zone. These models must satisfy the common rules for bombs. Assign your bomb tokens to your nominated models.
So I really like this because it gets around an exclusion zone.
Yes.
It does the same thing that an exclusion zone normally does, which is set a minimum distance back between you and the objective, or in this case, the objective and its target. Mm-hmm. So you can use your infiltrate, you can use your forward deploy. Nothing's stopping you from doing that, but the objective can't start any further forward. So this gives a couple of different ways you could approach it. You could assign the bomb to someone in your deployment zone who's fast.
Yes.
You could also infiltrate some specialists who are fast and then daisy chain the bomb up there through other models.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically it acts the same as if you're carrying a supply box. So you have to spend the order to pick up bomb. So like not the person who's carrying it, but the person who's taking it off the other player in the same way as you would hand off a supply box. There's no limitations on who can carry the supply box.
Correct.
So you can give it to you can actually give it to according to this, the way that the author's done it is you can give it to a peripheral, you can give it to like to Pupniks, to Nazmats, to the Peacemakers, Oxbot if you want to, and that's why he also has said with up to 2 models inside the deployment zone.
Yes.
So the common rules of bombs mean that only each model can carry a maximum of 1 bomb, but models with baggage skill, so I'm thinking like Magariba, for example, right?
Yes.
She can carry 2, but she's not a specialist, so she can't plant them, but she can
get them close.
She can get them there, and then you can have an infiltrated specialist or an AD to walk on the side of the board, take them off her, and then boom, boom, plant one, grab the other one, plant the other one, which is really cool. It adds a lot of like difference to each game because you can play around with who gets the bombs and how you pass the bombs off. And
it gives several different approaches that are all equally valid, but some may work better for some armies, some may work better against certain opponents. And I really like that it encourages the use of handing off supply boxes.
Yeah, and a thing to note as well is you cannot pick up an enemy's bomb.
Correct.
So if I shoot next troop and he drops the bomb, that's where the bomb will stay until he picks it up with someone else picks it up. So there's no like stealing someone else's bomb, which at first I was like, but then it just makes the game more complicated because then you're like, well, where do I put this bomb?
Well, because if you were able to steal someone's bomb, then you could basically time out the game because they wouldn't have enough time for it to explode.
That's true. Oh yeah, so we should probably just cover off on that explode mechanic because you did mention it earlier. So once, so it says arm bombs. Yes, that's right. So once you've placed a bomb, which is just a whip check, it has to be on a scenery item that is inside. Sorry, it has to be inside the 16-inch line of your opponent's side of the table. Yep. And on a scenery item that is inside that 16-inch line. Now, it doesn't specify that the building needs to be entirely inside the 16-inch line, which I think is probably
It leaves
good.
it a little bit vague.
Yeah.
So you could probably negotiate with your opponent if you have really big buildings that segments of those buildings were independent.
Yeah, you could probably say like, okay, this building is majority inside the 16-inch, but there's like a few inches that are out.
Yeah.
As long as you are inside the 16-inch part of the building, I would say like any part of that building counts, or that building does count. But also, so similar to something like how you do decharges. The decharge is inside, but the decharge classified sabotage says it has to be entirely inside.
Yes.
But I think this makes it a little bit easier because again, you've got less room to play with. And it also means it removes the need for a TO to set up a table in a particular way to make sure all these buildings are inside the 16-inch.
You don't
line.
have to have this nice line down the 16-inch.
Which actually then creates issues with deploying, because then you have this like line of like nothing where things can be shot at. So I really like that. So anyway, once it's placed, at the start of each player turn, add 1 arm counter to all armed bombs. An armed bomb that has just been placed starts the game with 2. So it says here, place 2 armed counters on the bomb. The bomb is now considered armed. Add 1 arm counter to all armed bombs on the table. If any bomb has 4, it will detonate. And this is the fun bit. Place a circular template centered on each bomb that is detonated. All troopers within template range must make an arm save against damage 15 with explosives.
Yes.
Then remove the detonated bomb. Now, I feel like that's unlikely to take place a lot of the time, because I feel like you are going to place it and then die or run away.
Correct. But think about what happens to the specialist who failed to disarm the bomb last round.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So like I've gone up, turn 1, whatever, place it. I finish my turn. It starts your turn. It's now got 3 arm tokens on it.
Oh, so I plant the bomb. The start of your turn, it gets the 3rd. If you don't do anything, the start of my 4th turn, it goes off. You have 1 turn to try to disarm it.
So my turn, I put it down. It has 2. It goes over to your turn. And has 3. And then you've got your turn to try and disarm it. If you don't, it goes to 4 and blows up. Right?
Yes.
Okay. That's so much fun. Because you just like, especially if you're just like rolling 20s, like please.
Yeah. This would be a good part to bring in the Infocom card or Intelcom card.
Intelcom card, yes.
I like how this did it, because so often Intelcom cards just don't get used.
Exactly. So there are 3 classifieds in this mission, but it does say 1 objective point for each, maximum of 2, and it says see Intelcom card rule. So this one here, I mean, you think you discussed it in the last episode briefly. This one is Intelcom card disruption. Do you want to take it away?
Okay, so normally you have to sacrifice an unfulfilled classified card. There we go. In this, it's a more powerful effect, but you can only trigger it after you have satisfied and completed a classified. So once you complete a classified and reveal it to your opponent, you can choose to trigger the Intelcom effect.
Yeah.
In which case, on your opponent's next turn, the first time they try to defuse a bomb, the skill will automatically fail.
That's
the downside is you have now basically given up a victory point.
Yes. So like, So if you've had a test run, for example, and you've used it to repair a remote, and then at that point you say, I can choose to reveal that card. I mean, usually you reveal that card when you say you've done the classified, but in this instance,
in this case, you can only trigger the effect the moment you satisfy the classified.
But it says the player may choose to reveal that card, so you don't have to. You don't have to.
Correct.
If you don't want to.
But it's only good when you have satisfied that.
Yes. So you do the classified,
correct.
But you don't have to. You can keep that one in your pocket and say, I've got that point. But if it gets to a point, but it says that player may choose to reveal a card. So when you fulfill it, so you can't keep it in your pocket.
Correct.
You say, I've done test run. Here it is. At that point, you have to then say, am I or am I not going to use it as an Intelcom? If you say no, then that's that point's yours. You've got that point, but you can at that moment say, this one I've just fulfilled, I'm going to use it as Intelcom, so the next time you do a whip check to defuse a bomb, it will automatically fail. Is it only? It's only
on their next turn. So timing is important.
They may nominate one of their arm bombs on the table.
Oh, I forgot about that part. Yes.
In their opponent's next player turn, the first diffused bomb skill used. Okay, so it's the next player turn. Yeah. So you obviously don't want to be the second player and use it on your last turn, because you
might just take the objective point.
Yes, you take the objective point. But so the timing is important. Maybe leaving it till the end, near the end of the game when orders are sparse, and maybe you've already killed all their forward observers and engineers, and they've just got a tech bee or something, whip 12, and they're like, last order, nope. Which I really like, because that does make Intelcom more interesting and useful.
Yes, and getting that extra classified card means that you're not sacrificing a victory point.
That's right. Yes.
You're not sacrificing the potential
Yes.
for one.
Yeah.
You can still use Intelcom and score 10 objective points.
That's true.
If you satisfy all 3 of your classifieds.
Yes, so that's true, because typically you can exchange that in frontline, for example. You're locked out at 9
Yes.
OP, whereas this one you can still get 10, but you need to get 3 classifieds to do it, which could be very difficult. But I think there is an HVT in this one. Yes, so you can still get secure HVT at the end, so you're not completely locking yourself out. And then also there is a defensive turret in this mission as well.
So, do you know the story behind the defensive turret in this mission?
No.
So, in the author's notes for this, they said that CB likes to add these in-stream models, and it was the model that was currently on their painting table in front of them, so they added a defensive turret.
Sure, I dig it. And I think this mission is really interesting. I was building a list for it because I'm playing a game on Thursday of this one, and it is really interesting trying to build a list for it to figure out what troopers do you want to hold them onto. I'm looking at forward observer bots, because they're 6-4 move, right? They can get there, they can place it, they get the 2 dice, the +3, but they're also like, they have no armor. They're very flimsy.
They kind of go down when people look at them harshly.
Yeah, and also something else I was thinking of is you don't just want to put all of your eggs into placing the bomb. You also need to keep things back to defuse the bomb.
Yes.
If your opponent does manage to snake its way through, and you've pushed all of your specialists into the midfield, you're going to bring them back to go defuse that bomb. And if you don't have the right bomb, you could just not do it, and then it goes off.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really interesting, and yeah, the defense mechanism is really interesting, similar to something like Capture and Protect, where you've got to really defend your lines, but it's a broader line you've got to defend. Yeah, this is really cool. Looking forward to playing this one. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, what's up next? So,
dropshipping.
Okay, so next one we have dropshipping. So this is a crazy mission, and I think even CB were like, "Whoa,
okay,
what is this?"
This is a narrative mission.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Good
we'll start with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Okay, do you want me to take this one away?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll take this one away. So Val wrote some notes on this one. Actually, I don't actually have a synopsis for this, so I'm just going to basically tell you what I see in this mission. So it is an armory or an objective room mission, but the objective room is actually a dropship. So the intent of the mission is you have to get things into the dropship, and then at some point in the game, the dropship takes off.
So it automatically takes off at the end of the second round.
That's right, yes.
But it can be triggered at the end of the first game round by the players. By
using, I think there's a console or something
yes,
like that. Yes.
If you've successfully downloaded the ship logs, I believe.
Oh, yes.
So if any player has hit the console, then it triggers the takeoff during turn 1.
That's right, yeah. So there's this dropship in the middle, which is essentially just the armory, the objective room. There is ship's logs inside there, and there are tech coffins inside there. Everything. It's a wide gate. But yeah, what makes this mission so super crazy is this thing will take off at either turn 1 or turn 2, and then it will create a second table, like a sideboard table, with whatever was in the armory room when it took off, now has to fight in the air somewhere.
Yes. And when it takes off, there's this nice little last-minute scramble, so anyone who's within, I think, 8 inches of it can make a dodge roll to try to get onto or off of the dropship before it leaves.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, at the end of the second game round, the dropship takes off. If player downloaded the ship, the first game round takes off. Yep. When the dropship takes off, models within zone of control of the dropship may dodge as an arrow to either enter or leave the dropship. And then you mark the position of the 4 corners, and then you remove it from the game. And then that launch area where it used to be is now a saturation zone for the remainder of the game, which is quite nice because it
means you don't have a giant gap in the middle of the board.
Yeah, it's slightly, at least it does something. And then the basic main objectives for the game are to control supply boxes, which are inside the
tech
dropship,
coffins.
the tech coffins inside the dropship. Download the ship's logs, we've already talked about, and then dominate the dropship.
Yes.
Which is why it's really important to get things in there so that you can dominate it, because that's worth 3 objective points.
So should we talk about what makes the dropship special?
Yes, let's talk about what makes the dropship special.
So it is in the air, which means aerial deployment troops can interact with it.
Oh yeah, where is that bit?
I think it's further up.
Dropship. I can't remember where it's gone. It's somewhere. It's somewhere about it.
Airborne deployment or airborne dropship.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yes.
So yeah, after the ship takes off, combat jump can jump into the dropship. I believe parachutists can also drop into the dropship, but it's a combat jump at a -3.
-3. Yep.
To assist with this, the inside of the dropship is now a low vis zone, so it makes it slightly less lethal to try to jump on.
It's just like one of those things where it's like flying in the air, and this dropship guy is like comes to the door, and he's like, all hero, and then he just gets immediately just kicked straight off it by whatever was in there.
Well, speaking of getting kicked off the ship, you could, because you want the objectives to be off the dropship, you need ways to get off.
That's right, yes. The supply boxes, while they start inside the ship, you actually want to get them off the ship.
Yes.
So you can either do that before it takes off, or you can do it after it takes off, right?
Yes. So there's 2 ways to get off the ship. One, if you have aerial deployment, you just basically aerial deploy down. So combat jumper parachutist, you jump off, you parachute down, you land, yay you. This mission has my favorite rule of the entire contest.
Yeah.
And that is emergency escape. So.
Oh, yes. Yes. So we have
this is where
we have flee dropship, which is just like a normal skill you're talking about.
Yes.
Emergency escape. Yes.
Yes. So to do this, you have to have courage, religious trooper, or remote presence to even declare the skill. At which point, you get to make a whip roll to see if you can actually do it.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And if you fail, you just stay on the dropship. You didn't quite work up the courage. If you succeed, you get to combat jump down there, and then you take a saving throw against damage 18, continuous armor equals 0. Because you did not have a parachute. But if you really need to get a supply box down there, someone else will have to claim it, but it will be down there.
Oh, that's so good. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you could just pick up the supply box, emergency escape, and then you die. And then, because you end up always landing in where the objective room used to be, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I was wondering if there'd be like some sort of scatter mechanic, but this is cleaner. At least you know where they go.
Yeah.
Your smattered body is on the ground, and then your mate can just pick up and go, thanks, buddy. Cheers for that.
Yeah.
just scrape off all the blood and guts.
Well, it's okay. They had remote presence. They're not really there.
Oh yes, yeah. That's the thing I quite like. I find this quite funny as well. It says the whip roll, troopers with the remote presence and or G jumper special skill automatically pass this whip roll.
Yeah.
So like just proxies being like, whatever, I'll get a new sleeve, just jump out.
Just organic damage.
So that's really interesting as well. Yeah, this is definitely a narrative. You do also get Corsairs in this one as well.
Corsair helps just to make sure that everyone has something to go into the dropship.
Yeah.
And the Corsair may be the best model actually to jump onto an occupied dropship because they've got hollow projector, which means they can come in 3 doors.
Right, of course. Yeah, they don't have to come on like touching each other, right? Yeah, they just come. Oh, yeah, good point.
Because no matter where they are, they'll all be within 8 inches of each other in an 8-inch room.
That's a good point. And also there is the Evo hacker bonus as well, which is nice because I think the only missions I know that have this is like, I think Biotech 4 and Panic Room.
I think we had one more in this that had it, but it was thematically appropriate to have an Evo hacker in there.
This one is as well. So the bonus for this one basically just gives you the extra order that we see in ITS, and which makes a lot of sense given Evo hackers. You want the Evo hacker in this mission so that you can combat jump more effectively. So that's really great.
This was also the mission with the temporary exclusion zone.
Oh, right.
Which basically was an exclusion zone that went away at the start of the game. So you couldn't deploy there, but you could drop there and use aerial deployment after the game started.
Yeah, so that's actually off the...
it's the inside of the dropship.
Inside the dropship, yeah. You can't deploy there, but once it obviously goes away, then you can move there. Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else on this mission that we had? it's basically just a crazy mission, and it seems to play very, very interestingly, very fun. I haven't tried it yet, but we'd like to give it a crack.
We'll be trying it on Saturday.
We will be, because it was Val's pick for the mission, so that's good. Okay, next up we have containment. Actually no, I didn't put the name in that one.
Yep,
that's fine.
Okay, so containment is kind of like a reverse panic room. You've got 4 containment pods that are spewing biotech 4, and you have to repair them for objective points or sabotage them to give your opponent the plague. So you have to balance between, like, oh, do I want them repaired, or do I want to sabotage them for my opponent? But you have to have some degree of cooperation in this game, because at the end of the game, there aren't enough containment pods, everyone dies.
Yeah. This is, so the set, sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah.
So the setup for this one is your quadrants with your 4 things, just like supremacy. These objectives are containment pods, and there is did you mention this already? There's a biotech 4 zone in this mission.
Yes, the biotech 4 zone is around those, and you're trying to shut off that. So you need to run in and turn off the biotech 4.
Yeah, so these things are like, essentially sort of bombs ready to go off, biotech 4 bombs ready to go off, and you have to try to repair them, but your opponent or you can also sabotage them.
Yep. And by sabotage, we mean permanently.
Permanently, yes. So you can repair a containment pod, which is just a skill that you would use with a specialist. Once it is repaired, how many wounds has it got?
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different one. In this one, basically, you can sabotage, and then once it's sabotaged, someone else can try to repair it later.
Okay, right, yes.
It's not permanently sabotaged. Yeah. I'm thinking of a different mission, sorry.
Yeah, so there was a bit here. So there are 4 containment pods, one placed in the center of each quadrant. Token or piece of all containment pods start the game in the sabotage state. A player may have a maximum of 2 repaired containment pods at any time.
Yes.
Right? So that's 1 player. So obviously I can have 2, Nick can have 2, all 4 repaired, we're all happy.
Yep.
But I cannot have 3. So if I repair my 2, it's on Nick to try and repair his 2 or go and sabotage mine.
Yep.
And they're all with whip checks. I don't think there's any bonus. Oh, there's an engineer and hacker bonus to this one. So +3, 2 dice. And essentially is there, there's no, it's basically, it's either sabotaged or it's repaired, right?
Yep. Kind of like an on-off switch, but open, closed, and open means there's plague coming out.
That's right, yeah. So when it's sabotaged, 4 malfunctioning biotech vor containment pods are spewing biotech vor plague into the zone of operations of each pod, which is 8 inches, an 8-inch radius of each pod. At the end of each turn, all troopers, both models and markers belong to the active player, blah, 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 take a saving throw at BTS with damage 14, same as a biotech vor zone, because troopers with structure take 2 saves. At the end of the 3rd game round, any trooper inside the zone of control of a sabotage containment pod is automatically killed. Additionally, and this is where this mission gets spicy, if fewer than 3 containment pods are repaired, the biotech vor plague overflows from the containment system and infests the entire table, automatically killing all troopers.
Yes.
Right, now why is that important? Because the main objectives at the end of the game have more repaired containment pods, right? That's 2 objective points. At the end of the game, have a repaired containment pod. That's 2 objective points per repaired containment pod. At the end of the game, have more surviving victory points than the adversary. 2 objective points.
Yes, and if everyone dies, you don't have more.
You don't have more, yeah. So that's basically a way of effectively locking, like shutting you basically both out of 2 victory points, which could be an interesting handbrake in the event that you are losing, because you maybe only have 1 repaired containment pod and your opponent has 2, and you cannot maybe get to the one of them to repair it. You can
sabotage one of theirs. Suddenly there's not 3 repaired on the
board, and just kill everybody, because I think does that make sense? Does that work for the points?
Correct. So you can only have 2 repaired pods at a time, which means to have the minimum 3 repaired at the end of the game, you have to have 2, and your opponent has to have at least 1.
That's right.
So there is some timing with, you want to let them repair to an extent, but be prepared to stab them in the back at the last minute. So think of it like you're both rendering humanitarian aid, but you want to look better doing so.
Yeah, so like an example I'm thinking of is, so maybe I've gone second, you've repaired 2 of yours, I've only got 1 of mine repaired, but you are ahead on victory points.
Yep.
Right, so currently you would have 2 points for more, 4 points for having 2 repaired, so that's 6 points, and then you'd have another 2 points for having more victory points, and then there are also 2 classifieds, so you could potentially be on 10, and I could be on nothing. Right, I could now. Let's just say I got 2 classifieds as well. So I'm on 2. You're on. You maybe don't have any. You're on 8, but you might. But I want to knock you down to maybe 6.
Yeah,
I can just destroy one of the sabotage one of the containment pods, which knocks 2 points off you. But then we'll both die, which means none of us gets victory points, and it could end up in a 2-4, like a 4-0.
Well,
or something?
basically it means that if you're in the lead, you cannot rest.
Yeah.
If you're going first and you end turn 3 with 2 pods and they have 1, their target is to destroy one of your pods to knock off a lot of your victory points. And that means they can't just go, I've got all these buttons turned on, I win, I'll take a nice break.
Yeah, okay.
They have to not just have them turned on, they have to defend them to the end of the game.
Yeah, right, yeah. Cause it maybe is better if both of us have 2 on each, 2 repaired each, but then you're beating me on victory points. It would be in my best interest, obviously, instead if I can't kill you, just try to sabotage 1 pod.
Correct.
Which will drop 2 points off of you. It doesn't kill everybody because we've still got 3 activated, but that is that's kind of how you do it. Yeah.
So going into bottom of turn 3, if the first player has 2, the second player has 1, they can try to repair 1 and demolish 1, and then they swing into the lead.
Yeah. Okay.
But if they can't repair one of theirs, they can potentially do that, or they could repair 1 and now they've tied. Yeah, it's got a lot of different ways you could approach it.
Yeah, and I think it's also a very simple mission. I think as well. There's not it's fairly simple what you have to do. It's fairly easy for me to read it and understand. Okay, this is where the points are because they're all at end of game, right? So it's and then the only thing to bear in mind is, do you want to kill everybody? Is that in your best interest?
Yes.
Because no one gets any points from that, but you might just knock your opponent down from like a major to a minor, perhaps.
Well, and you might knock them down within 2 points of you.
Could be, yes.
For the offensive bonus.
And then, in the biotech vor plague area is 8 inches is a fair bit of the board.
Yes.
So I think if we say it right, they
are large enough to overlap with each other.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. So they're 6 inches from obviously from the middle, which means 6 inches from the deployment zone. So if you're in your DZ, you can
be touched by some of these.
Yes, but you can be fairly safe if you stay in your DZ. Unlike a lot of like Panic Room and Biotech Vor, where things in your DZ will die. Like your Flash Pulse bots, your engineer and stuff. In this mission, they should be fine.
Yes.
Unless, of course, at the end of the game, everyone dies.
Correct.
So that I kind of like. It doesn't force you to create a list like a Biotech Vor list where you have to make something that runs out of the DZ.
Correct.
And gets to the objective. It's more like, do I have a tough enough specialist, or do I have enough specialists that can get there, push the button, and potentially survive like a turn of maybe just getting whacked by the Biotech Vor zone, which creates some interesting list compositions, because you could be looking at heavy infantry, multiple win models, tags, that sort of thing.
Although Val did make the note here that it is not a very tag-friendly mission.
Oh, true,
because tags have structure, and your opponent can sabotage the Biotech Vor container right next to your tag.
That's true.
So at the start of your turn, it takes damage.
That's true. Although, again, most tags want to probably be living in the deployment zone anyway, so they can avoid being hit by the zone. They can move out, take some gunfights, run back.
Yeah.
As long as they don't start their turn in that zone.
Yes.
Then they're pretty safe. So this one I really like. There's also no quarter, so there's no retreat in this one, which makes sense. And yeah, I think this one's great. I think it has a slight issue with the ability to just screw your opponent over.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a fun mechanic.
Yeah.
Like that should be in the game more often.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can score tournament points by reducing your opponent's objective points close enough that you score an offensive bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
Defensive bonus.
So
Yes.
yeah, thanks very much to Corey McCulloch. He's also, I think, from South Australia. So another Aussie putting out a really interesting mission. Thanks so much, buddy. Okay, so next one we have Arms Race. So I feel like you have read this one more than I have. Were you happy to go through it?
Yeah.
Or am I putting you on the spot?
No, I can go through most of these.
Okay.
So
I can help you out, but yes.
Yeah, okay. So Arms Race, it's another narrative mission. It looks like incredible amounts of fun, and the random elements look like they might be a little too swingy for a serious event.
Yeah.
Especially once you get to starting your tag up and seeing what it has.
I think there was very much a bit of like a collective like, we get a free tag.
Yes.
So that's what this mission is about, right?
So both of you have a prototype tag that you first have to repair, and it's going to take a couple repair rolls to get it up and going. Then you have to get a pilot into it, but thankfully all specialists in this mission, I believe, get pilot as a skill.
Yes.
Once a pilot jumps into the tag, you now turn it on. Tags have both booty and metachemistry. You don't roll until you turn the tag on, and then you find out what you have.
It's crazy. Because it's also, the stat line on this thing is, I think it's an S6 tag.
Yes.
It has a, where is it? Oh yeah, I'll just zoom that one in a bit so I can see it a bit better. It is movement 6'4", CC 17, BS 14, which I'm like, that's okay. Phys 15, the willpower is the same as your pilot. Arm 6, BTS 6, structure 3, silhouette 6.
Yep.
Its equipment is ECM guided -6, so typical, fairly standard. ECM hacker -3, which is spicy. Base attack +1 damage. Booty, like mech chemistry, like you said. Dodge, Phys 11. Gizmo kit, Phys 11. Immunity shock. But its weapons are probably where it's like, I think it's where
it's a little weaker.
It's a bit weaker. So it has a Spitfire, a nanopulsar +1 burst, a multi-pistol, and an APCC weapon. So a fairly broad range of weapons there. Medium range. It's not an AP Spitfire. It's not an HMG.
Well, you've got your high burst. You've got your template. You've got your close range.
Yep. It does everything. It's a pretty decent tag, and it could be bonkers with booty and metachemistry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and considering both those tables, or the booty table has some lovely stuff for tags that almost never get to be used.
Yeah. Total immunity. Like, mimetism -6 or whatever it is. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's half the mission. That's kind of the defensive half the mission.
Yeah.
The offensive half of the mission is done by a war core.
Oh yes, I love this.
So, to start with, you get a free war core with any weapon loadout you would like.
Okay, so flash pulse and stun pistol.
Well, more of. Although in this case, it's still probably 360 visor.
Yeah, most of the time.
There's really no reason to have Sixth Sense in this because you're trying to use them offensively.
Yeah.
So the goal of the war core is to document the opponent's tag. So they have to, I think it's capture evidence, just a little bit low.
Capture evidence. Yep. Oh, here it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So only troopers with the journalist skill can declare this skill, which means you could take 2 war cores, and if you're, I think, Toha, you can throw in.
If you're a foreign company, you can. Oh, so the diplomatic delegate is also one.
Also has journalism. Yes. So Toha could take 3 journalists.
I think foreign company are AVA 2 war cores as well, so they can have 3. Foreign company get them because they love being out there.
Yeah, and if you've ever wanted to take advantage of that plus mod on the journalist skill, this mission takes it into account.
Yay!
So basically, War Corps has to take pictures, and once they do, they've got captured evidence. It works like a supply token that only they can carry. Your opponent's goal is to destroy it. So your War Corps has to go up, snap pictures of their tag, and run away.
Yeah. So it's where is it? It says capture evidence, and is there a destroy evidence bit in here?
I believe it's leave no trace.
Oh, leave no traces. Yep.
Yeah. So troopers may destroy the opponent's captured evidence by using coup de grace or by isolating the troopers' journalists.
Oh, that's it.
So in this, you can oblivion the journalists to cut off their upload.
Right, yeah. So it's not the supply token you're wanting. It's just that token's there to signify that
That's the model you need to take care of.
Take care of with
Yes.
with Consilium approved weaponry. So
Yes.
I don't think that's mentioned in there, but I think you should be just
Of course, because if you fail, the war core will capture using non-approved weaponry.
which is really interesting. Yeah, Oblivion hacking. So you can coup de grace. So coup de grace, you've got coup de grace the war core.
Correct.
So what happens if you just kill the war core?
I believe that. Oh, I don't remember. I think this is one of the ones where the author didn't have an explanation for it, and I didn't feel comfortable putting one in.
Yeah. Okay.
If you scroll up to the top, I believe
at the end of the game, have destroyed your opponent's captured evidence.
I believe with the captured evidence, if the model leaves the table, it leaves with them in this case.
Oh,
because they can't. It's not a token that stays on the table.
But how do they capture the evidence? How do they do that though? Because there's no rule for leaving the table. Trooper may no longer use the capture evidence skill, so you just have captured the evidence.
I believe the intent was that if the model leaves the table, it leaves with them. But...
No, I don't think there's any rule. I don't think there's any rule for that.
So I'll have to go over this tonight before I publish.
Yeah, a little bit of it's basically if that model stays on the table to the end of the game. At the end of the game, have destroyed your opponent's captured evidence. At the end of the game, have captured evidence of your opponent's prototype tag. Mm-hmm. So, but it doesn't specify, essentially, if the war core's done his job and he stays alive to the end of the game, you have it.
Yeah.
But because the only way that you can destroy the evidence is by coup de grace the war core or oblivioning the war core, then what happens if you just shoot the war core dead? Does that count as destroying the evidence?
I don't know. I think this is one of those ambiguous situations where I didn't feel like I could read the author's intent well enough.
Yeah, because I feel
and I didn't want to rewrite the scenario for them.
Yeah, because I feel like before the war core has captured the evidence, then they're fair game to shoot and kill.
Yes.
But once they've captured the evidence, it sort of seems to say that you're best off to try to kind of
digitally erase, basically.
Kind of like in those Hollywood movies where the president's sending somebody just go take care of this person, and then this person the Secret Service trying to kill this journalist, and then they blunder it, or the journalist walks into an open area and they're like, oh damn, we can't kill him, and we have to do it sneakily now, which I think is kind of what they're getting at. Is before he's taken the evidence, now he's got the evidence, he's like, no, you can't get me now. I've got this. I'm going to give this to CNN. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll just give you some sleeping pills. Or they'll we'll just, bribe you or something. So maybe there's this because what I see as being a bit of an issue is once the war core has captured the evidence, what's stopping the war from just standing up and just flash pulsing everything that gets to you? Because if you have to coup de grace them, then you can't
I think
shoot
that's
them.
Also where Oblivion comes in.
Oh, I guess
where you have a hacker go in and delete the information from their device.
That becomes a bit easier. Well, not easier, but it means that you got another way around doing it rather than just coup de grace. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a really fun mission. Definitely want to try this one as well.
There's consoles in here that you can basically activate to overload your opponent's tag, and puts it in basically isolated and immobilized, I believe.
Yes, so the activate console, once it's activated, a successful roll, the player immediately applies the isolated and immobilized B state to the opponent's active prototype tag. The prototype tag is no longer considered active until these states are removed. The only way to remove them is with an engineer.
Yes.
Once activated, the console can no longer be activated by either player for the remainder of the game. So basically, it's like a one use only.
Each player can use one of the consoles once.
One of the consoles once as a sort of stop button on that prototype tag before it rampages through your lines.
Or so that the war core doesn't get ARO'd by the tag.
Ah, right. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. That makes sense. Okay. So that's a fun mission. Thanks very much, Josh, for that one. Okay. Next up, we have. All right, we've got this one. Quite excited to talk about this one because I've actually played it.
Oh,
so this one
excellent.
is Data Heist. So this one was sent in to us by Richard Rushforth, and was actually one of the missions that got a fair bit of comment from Heloise.
Yes, specifically for the alternate scoring method.
Mm-hmm.
Heloise seemed to like that as a, and I like it because it adds more nuance to how you can score points, because you can score them in smaller increments.
Yes. Yeah, so the aim of this game is there is a here we go. So there is a table here. It's your standard 3 objectives in the middle, like supplies, except the 2 on the outside are tech coffins, and the one in the middle is what's called the data vault. Now, the objective of this mission is the 2 on the outside, the tech coffins, contain effectively supply boxes, which are called data info cubes.
Yeah.
Right, and you can extract them just like a supply box. Once a model is holding an info cube, they will download what is called data packets at the end of every game turn. Sorry,
Actually, if you scroll down, there's a whole table at the very bottom. Yep, there you go.
Oh, yes. So at the end of each player turn, you will download a number of data packets depending on what it is you've got. So, for example, the info cubes on the outside, you will download 1 data packet at the end of each player turn. So bear in mind, this is turn we're talking about, not round. So my turn, next, next, blah, 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 back and forth. Then there is also a thing called the data vault, which is in the middle. And that can be works differently in that it's a console that you activate.
Yes.
And in addition to that, you can control it by being in base contact with it to gain additional data packets.
Yeah. So there's a lot of risk reward with approaching data packets. So infill cubes, go out there, grab it, run away, hide in the corner, and you get a trickle of information.
Yeah.
So safe, low yield. With the data vault, as long as you've activated it, you don't have to be there, but the opponent can't come in and activate it. So you have to defend it to some extent.
Yes.
If you want to risk a little bit more and you can leave someone there touching the data vault who survives your opponent's turn, then, or at the end of your turn as well.
End of your turn, yeah. Yeah, end of your turn. Then you will get an additional data packet.
Yeah.
So what I really like about this mission is that it's kind of a splice of 2 different styles of play where you're like looking to dominate the middle, push the button, hold it to get those additional data packets, but also there are 2 supply boxes essentially that you can run away with, hold, and just get a continuous trickle of points.
Yep.
Now, what's interesting about this mission is who can do these things. So we have. Actually, this is actually different from what the final mission is. There was a slight change to it, which I've realized that hasn't been added to this packet. So initially, what happened was there was the data vault. A hacker has a +3 whip and 2 rolls to activate the data vault. However, since speaking to the author, he's actually changed this, and he's changed it to forward observers.
Okay, get this to me tonight so I can
so
I can make sure I get this in.
He actually changed it to forward observers for what reason that I think a few players have picked up on. There's just a lot of hacker bonuses in this mission, and while hacker makes sense because it's a data vault, he figured forward observers just to give them a bit of
It's nice to remember they exist.
Yeah, but what's really interesting though, and I think did you miss this one as well? I think may have missed this one too. Is the the info cubes on the outside can be extracted by engineers, but also
booty.
Oh, you did write that down?
Yeah, also booty.
Oh, where's that?
Yeah.
Okay,
specialists or troops with booty.
Yes, specialists or troops with booty skill can also declare skill. So this gives a little bit of play around those those units that have booty. So I'm thinking like Carmen and Batard, authorized bounty hunters, Ada Swanson. Some of those units that maybe don't get maybe necessarily much play. Suddenly they're like, oh hey, we can do this. We can do the thing, and they also get the plus. They also get the +3, I think, as well.
I don't believe so. I think they're just allowed to.
Okay, they're just allowed to. Sure.
And engineers get a bonus for extracting cubes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a bit of an interesting difference in the mechanic. So yeah, I think this one's really interesting because of those 2 ways which you can interact with the objectives. But then you were mentioning as well with the way that the data packets are downloaded.
Yes.
So do you want to explain that to us, to them there? So how the points are worked out, I guess.
Yeah. So instead of a 1-to-1, you basically get to exchange your data packets for objective points at the end of the game. So if you've got between 1 and 5 data packets, you get 1 point. Between 6 and 10, you get 2. Between 11 and 15, you get 3. And if you get 16 or more, you get 4 points. On top of that, there is one additional point if you have more data packets than your adversary.
Yeah. Which what I like about this is because it's like turn by turn, right? It's that immediate scoring again, right?
Yes.
So I grab an info cube and I push the button. That's immediately 2 in data packets that I've got, which is effectively 1 objective point.
Yes.
And that's locked in. If I can hold that info cube and keep that button pushed until the end of your turn, Nick, that's another 2 points. Another 2 points, be it packets.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like getting your head around that thing where you're constantly saying points, but you actually mean packets because they don't. You could end up with the game with 10 data packets, but that's only 2 objective points.
Yes.
But you will accumulate them quickly, especially the longer that you hold on to them. Now, one of the things that was brought up to me by one of our locals after we played this game is because it's a turn-based scoring system, the second player is actually locked out of any points on the first turn.
Yes.
So, over the course of the game, the maximum you can score per turn is 1 for each of the info cubes.
5.
5? How can you get 5?
1 for each info cube and 2 points plus 1 for boosting the objective or middle.
I think you only get plus 1 for boosting, right?
Yeah, but it's worth 2 to start with.
Download 2 packets for having. Oh yeah, sorry, yes, you're right. Yes, 2 for activating the data vault and an additional 1 for boosting it. Yeah, so 5. So over the course of 6 turns, right? Then that's 30 packets you can download, right? Maximum.
Yes.
Like if all goes well.
Yes, it would be a maximum of 30 packets for the first player if everything went well.
But only
and
25.
25 if everything went full for them for the second player. However, regardless of which one of those happens, it means they've completely dominated their opponent. Their opponent didn't score anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of a big deal it is that the second player is locked out of 5 data packets. Because
I want to play it a few times because I'm curious how many points that the first player can actually get. Also, if the first player is going up there to dominate that much, they haven't alphaed.
Yeah.
And suddenly second player gets to alpha.
So I played this game with Jacob like last week, and I went ham on the objective and just tried to get as many data packets out as I could, and I went first. And what the game ended with was me with something like, I think it was 10 data packets, or 10. Yeah, I think 10 data packets. I think I'd like gotten 4 on turn 1, and I kept one of the info cubes for the whole game. That was like, I think that was like 6 points. Yeah, plus then getting the activating. So it was about 10 data packets I had. But Jacob, because he punched me really hard back and stopped me from getting back to the console in the middle, at the end of the game he actually had 16. So he had max objective points, whereas I wasn't able to get that because even though I went first and could get more, it was actually not a very good idea for me really to go for that many on the first turn because I didn't have an option to punch my opponent. So I think in the balance, I think it's fine. It could be a concern because obviously we don't want to create a situation where one player literally cannot get as many packets as the opponent.
And now that you bring that up, I think you could adjust the conversion of data packets to objective points some, because it looks like the 16 is based on the maximum possible of 30. But that maximum possible 30 is for first player. It's maximum 25 for second player. So that might, and given this would be a case of we play this many times and get some data gathered and say, okay, 16 might be a little bit high, maybe it's 14 or something like that.
Yeah, that seems fair. And then the last thing I want to mention about this mission is it does have an exclusion zone, but what I really like about it is it's got a slightly modified exclusion zone, which is a little bit less exclusionary, in that it's called the restricted access zone, which means the restricted access zone is applicable only during the deployment phase. Therefore, it will not affect use of airborne deployment skill used during a player's turn, which is really great. Another point about it is any trooper deploying within the restricted access zone, so you can still deploy inside it. You just must make a fizz roll with a -3 mod, in the same way as it's basically confused deployment.
Yes, it's like combining confused deployment and exclusion zone.
Yes.
So you have it is an exclusion zone, but if you really want to push it, you still can.
Yeah. And I think that is nice because it still allows you to deploy 4 inches out of your deployment zone, right?
Yes.
Use forward deployment or a little bit of infiltration. But if you really want to go across, get up to the midway point to get to those buttons, and let's just say you've got a unit that doesn't have a camel state anyway, right? So I'm thinking Nahab's, right, as an example. Failing that roll doesn't really affect them that much. Because you get to deploy them back inside the deployment zone anywhere you want. So you're not really missing out on it, but the risk, the sort of a risk reward type of thing. But what's also kind of interesting is by making that fizz roll, it's exactly the same as you over infiltrating. It doesn't. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't stack.
It does stack.
It does
stack.
But
okay. You're right. It makes this interesting situation where if you go just outside your deployment zone, it's free. Yeah. If you go up to the halfway point, you've got a -3. If you go the next
it
half,
does say that, yes.
It goes up to a -6. But if you go beyond that, it goes back to a -3.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
So it encourages you to over infiltrate.
Over infiltrate. That's right, because that's what I remember doing in my game. I was like, I can put my Nahab just outside your deployment zone. That's the same rule as me going into my half.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure if that's deliberate or not, but it's fun.
And with the restricted access using the confused deployment rules, the failure of that roll is less severe.
Yes.
Because you get to place anywhere in your deployment rather than boardage.
Yeah. So that becomes a bit more useful. You still you lose your camel state and whatnot, but I'm thinking units like Andromeda also would be very good in this one because she is a specialist.
Yep.
Doesn't really lose anything from it. So yeah, no, this one's really good. I was really close to wanting to put this in my top 5. The reason why I didn't was because of the aforementioned way the data packets are scored, and I'm just not sure that's balanced enough. But other than that, I think this mission is fantastic.
Yep.
Really, really, really like it. Really like the thought that went into it. So, okay, on with that, we will move on to
Ships the Night.
Oh, fuck. All right, Rob Cantrell, you absolute unit.
Slight tangent. We did just play a game of this right before we recorded this.
Yes. Currently,
and we had very different opinions on this mission going into it, and Kev was right.
Yeah. Nick is currently sitting, like I said before, sitting in a lounge room. We just had a lovely game of Ships in the Night. Thank you, Rob, for writing the mission. It was chaotic, as we expected it to be, but also different, I think, than what we initially expected it to be. So we'll quickly go through. Do you want to go through this?
Oh, sure. It's actually, like most missions for Rob, it is elegantly simple and just tweaks one or two little things. And in this case, it's tweaking the entire deployment phase. So there are no deployment zones.
No.
You roll off for initiative.
This is the deployment zone. This is the table.
Yes,
just like
that's the table.
It's just for those who can't see this, it's just a 48 by 48 square with an 8-inch circle in the middle of the table. That's your zone of operations.
Yep.
There is no deployment zone. Actually, sorry, everywhere is a deployment zone. The entire table is a deployment zone.
Yes. So basically, you roll off for initiative. Whoever wins the roll keeps initiative. And don't worry, it makes sense. So there are two choices for that player. They are player 1 or they are player 2. Player 1 deploys first and goes first. Player 2 deploys second and goes second. So deployment in this. Player 1, you deploy all your models anywhere on the table. Yep. All of them. Nothing's held back.
Even if you got Strategos, doesn't matter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Player 2 deploys all their models on the table anywhere they want. Except for you can't be in silhouette contact with an enemy, I believe.
That's right. That's correct, yes.
And that's it. Then player 1 goes.
That's it. Yeah. Thing to bear in mind: troopers may deploy using hidden deployment and airborne deployment as normal.
Yes.
So you can still hold things off the board as far as hidden deployment and combat jump and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So because there's no deployment zones, there has to be additional clarification. And Rob went with the most liberal possible interpretation of this. So for the purposes of any special skill that refers to a friendly or enemy table edge or a friendly or enemy deployment zone, the player controlling that trooper decides what is a friendly or enemy deployment zone or board edge.
That's one. Yeah, that's it.
Which we actually found a little bit of interesting tweak that I think probably needs to be covered in this with impetuous. Yes, because we had impetuous troops that were in places that they couldn't see anything and suddenly went.
Yeah.
I guess that board is my opponent's deployment zone. Whee!
Yeah, so you can kind of like liberally use impetuous by being like, that's my opponent's deployment zone, so I'm going to go in that direction and then follow all the other rules.
Yeah.
Which to me, it's sort of it almost for this mission. You know how like when you get into when an impetuous trooper gets into an enemy deployment zone, they essentially become like kings, and they can go anywhere they want, or queens, whatever it is in checkers. They can go. They can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's just the rule to use.
Yeah.
So as long as you still go, as long as you still try and move as far from your starting position as possible, and use your full movement, I feel like it's just more fun to be like, go wherever you want, because you just deployed wherever you want. Yeah. So what's the objective of this mission?
The objective of this mission, there is an 8-inch zone of operations in the middle. Yeah. The goal is to hold it.
Yeah.
You get 2 points at the end of every game round, and then 2 additional points at the end of the game for occupying it.
At the end of the game.
You also get points for killing lieutenants.
Because there is reinforced tactical link in this one.
Yes.
And no loss of lieutenants, so everyone knows who their lieutenant is, which makes deploying even more fucking frightening.
Yes. Yes and no, because the penalty for losing your lieutenant isn't as bad.
No.
But it means that if your opponent just goes, dink, I killed your lieutenant, nice and easy, well, you're now down 2 points until you catch up on lieutenant kills.
That's right, yeah.
Do you want to talk about the way that zone of control, or zone of operations is scored?
Yes, because this was something that I actually didn't realize until about 20 minutes before you came around tonight, and I was like, oh, well, too late to change my list. So, occupy zone of operations. So it's occupy zone of operations. A zone of operations is occupied if a player has more troopers than the adversary in the zone of operations. So that does not mean dominate, that does not mean control, that means occupy, which means it has nothing to do with how expensive or how big or whatever is about this model. It's just how many do you have in that 8-inch bubble?
How many bodies do you have in the bubble?
Yeah. The only difference to this is baggage and Shazvasti. So baggage gives you an additional count. You count as
two.
Two troopers. So a baggage trooper will count as 2 troopers. And Shazvasti is even if you're in a null state.
Yeah, it's basically unchanged. You still count.
You still count, but you just count as 1.
Correct.
So like building a list with like a big chunky heavy infantry core is still 5 models.
Yes.
It just counts as 5. Doesn't count as like 100 odd points. So it really changes. I think it changes quite a lot about what you might value.
Your 80-point tag counts just as much for occupying as the 10-point line trooper.
Yep. As a Shaolin monk, as a taiga.
Yep.
Right. As whatever. It's like, whoa, okay, yep, that changes things.
Unless you're Maggie, and then you count as 2 Shaolin monks.
You count as 2 Shaolin monks. There's also a defensive turret in this one as well, which is really interesting. We did note that the way that Rob has written it is different from how it's written in the ITS packet, where it says before deployment phase, each player must place a defensive turret total inside the deployment zone. The player that kept deployment. Oh, sorry, hang on. Did you edit this one?
I believe I did.
Okay, so Nick's edited it to reflect the ITS packet, but reading through the unedited version, he says that you deploy them when you deploy your force, which is different to how ITS says, which is where you deploy it before.
Correct. And now having played it, that makes perfect sense. I thought it may have been a typo because it's basically copy and paste of the ITS rule, but no, in this case, it does need that clarification because otherwise you get a weird situation where you place 2 defensive turrets and everyone deploys everywhere else.
That's true, yeah, because there's no real line of scrimmage. There's just anywhere, it's just nebulous deployment. So we played it, and what do we think?
I think it was a lot of chaotic fun, and it plays entirely differently to Infinity because, well, let's just talk about deployment. So I deployed a nice core link with good coverage on top of a building. And then Kev deployed 2 repeater bots in it. My hacker was in that. So I had to figure out how to kill his hacker that was on the board before I activated my entire core link.
Yeah. You
I had a
managed to do
good
it.
plan, and my parachuting killer hacker fluffed it.
Fluffed it.
Yeah.
But yes, it creates a moment, because I think we started the game and you kind of had a moment of like, how, what, how, because it was just chaotic, right? Because everything's so close to each other. You deployed first. I deployed. I put like a TR bot looking at your link. I put like two other repeater bots basically with shotguns.
You were running 4 TR bots.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah. I ran two two TR HMGs and 2 baggage TR with rifle light shotgun, and basically put like 3 or 4 of them just facing his, like, on the rooftop or looking at the rooftop where his core link were, where he just couldn't use them. But then it creates all these other interesting scenarios where, because everyone's sort of like on top of each other, everyone's like, you doing your unit, I put down like a Naviton with heavy flamethrower looking at that unit.
Yeah.
But then you have another unit looking at that unit, and then if anyone moves anywhere, everyone gets a dodge, or everyone gets to hack because you're in a repeater zone of one of the things that you've just put down. And it creates this real like there's a few times where I went, oh, I did that in the wrong order. I should have shot this unit over here first.
Yes.
Because now I've just given you a free dodge, and now you've just dodged into CC with the unit that I was trying to lock down your core link with.
Yes.
And you're like, didn't think about that. Because the situation that you come up with that in Infinity is not that common. Like, it'll happen, but maybe turn 2 or turn 3 of a game, and you're aware of it. Whereas in this mission, it happens from the very first order. So you have to really carefully think about the order of activation of your units so that you don't end up with this cascade or like your plans going out the window.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a very fun, very, very
It was fun.
mission.
It was chaotic. I would love to try it again sometime. It's, oh boy, did it have a steep learning curve.
Yeah, I think,
especially for going first.
I think going first. I think that's one of my criticisms of the mission is I think going first is not very good. Going second seems to be a lot easier to understand, because you get to counter deploy everything of your opponents or whatever's on the table. Also, you get to answer second and then move things into the zone.
Yep.
If you go first and you try to overcommit and put things in the middle, then all I need to do is just remove whatever I need to remove from there, and I can get it.
Yeah.
And also, you just get such an advantage by knowing where everything is.
Yeah.
So you can go, well, I don't want to put that, like, I think I had a situation where I had Fiddler, and I was like, all right, I don't want to put you anywhere near too many hacking things, too many repeaters, so I just knew where to put her. But you going first, you just kind of have to think about it's very
because I tried to spread out some but not too much, and like looking toward the end going like, oh, there's this whole area of the board I haven't touched. So I'm like, okay, I'll deploy a camo beast hunter there because you'll know exactly what it is because I'm running Rama. And that's a scary enough piece that you have to respect it some. And that'll at least have a nice zone around it that you want to, and then of course you drop Batard into it.
And that's it does make the whole game play very differently. The other thing that we were talking about during the game is that we wonder if it might work better is if the 8-inch bubble zone is replaced with a objective room.
Yes.
Which would make it smaller, because obviously it's an 8-inch radius we're talking about.
Correct. 8-inch square as opposed to 8-inch radius.
Sorry, we were saying 8-inch bubble. It's not an 8-inch bubble though, it's a 16-inch bubble.
It's an 8-inch radius bubble.
8-inch radius bubble, but we're talking about maybe replacing it with an objective room.
Which is definitely, it's smaller. It's easier to defend. It's more familiar to defend for Infinity players. And I think that might help some with the advantage going first versus second.
Because you can kind of hold yourself up a little bit better inside there.
It also, the fact that it's infinitely tall helps with the board, because now you don't have all these angles coming everywhere across the board. Now you have kind of like a circle around the objective room that you have to negotiate left and right around.
It's a little bit easier to, on the one hand, I'm like happy that it's not an objective room mission, because objective rooms can be a pain in the arse, right? So any table can fit for this mission, but not every table setup is good.
I think having it be an objective room would make it friendlier to more types of terrain tables.
It just basically removes that whole worry, because when I was setting up the table for tonight's game, I was like, oh, this middle, I need to make it open enough that I can put things into it, but not too open that it just becomes an absolute like.
Yeah, you don't want a bunker.
Just a killing ground. Like it needs to be a bit of in between. Whereas I guess an objective room just takes that decision making out of the table person itself. Table's hands.
Yes, it'll make the tables more regular.
Yeah,
between them.
Yeah, but then it has the downside of it being an objective room table, which can be a pain in the ass to set up in an event. Not that I think this mission should be in any competitive event.
I think it should be in fun events, but
Absolutely.
I would not give it 2 hours.
No,
I would give it probably 3 hours at least.
That's the other thing is we were saying is it's our first time playing it, but I think because of the wacky deployment zones and what that does to how you interact with your opponent, it led to a longer game for us.
There are so many angles you have to see that you wouldn't normally have to care about.
Yeah.
And the chains of arrows that will affect your later turn actions, like Kev said, I activate this one, well, that causes Nick to dodge, which now dodges into a model that he wanted to activate later, but now it's engaged. Yeah.
It causes that sort of additional decision making, which you don't have to consider usually normally, but otherwise fun ass mission. So thanks so much for that, Rob. Okay, next up we have
well, this was submitted under one name and then changed to a different name after he resubmitted it. So this is Last Chance Launch.
He changed it.
So now this is a mission about evacuating a planet using public transport.
Public transport Victoria.
Yes.
Get the my key out.
And on top of that, space on board is limited, which means during rounds 2 and 3, the point cost of the models that can be evacuated drops. So during round 2, only models that are 30 points or less can board. And during round 3, it's 20 points or less. The get around for this is there are 2 tickets on the table for reserved seats. And if you can grab one of those tickets, any point model can use it to board.
Oh yeah, so the filling seats rule.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
However, as soon as you pick up the ticket, that model now has an objective point bounty on them.
Oh, so this is what's this one? This is the extract? No.
Okay. Start with, there's an objective room in the middle.
Yes. Okay, that's a very important thing to start with.
So start with an objective room in the middle. I believe this is one that starts closed. Have to get it open. And then
how do you get it open?
I believe it's just activating the door. Yeah, open the gates.
Open
there
the
we
gates.
go.
Yep. Okay.
Additionally, hang on. Pardon. If someone picks up a ticket, the gates automatically open. So either pick up a ticket, triggers them to open, or
how do you pick up a ticket?
The extract, I believe.
Extract. The trip was coming up must have been with a Mikey inspector. No, that's the.
Oh, sorry. No, that's extract your models.
Yeah.
You want acquire ID.
Acquire ID. So that is. Now,
so
where do you get that from?
You've got the 2.
So hang on. Let's just go back to the table design from the start again, right? So we've got the objective room in the middle, and then on the corners of each of the objective room, you have what's called you've got what's called lovers.
Yeah, skip them for now.
But we'll skip them for now.
Okay.
And then you also have 8 inches from the edge of the center line on each side is what's called the ID scanner, and that is where you get your ticket from.
Yep.
Okay, so you can open up the train, whatever.
Yep.
By the gates, by opening them normally.
Yep.
But in order to exit the thing, you want to get the ID out of the console.
So
right?
that will let you get around the point restriction on extracting.
Yes, right. Okay, we were saying about the 30 points before.
Is that you extract, there's a ticket scanner in the middle, lovingly called a Mikey reader because
we're in
the
Victoria.
author is from Melbourne.
Yep.
Basically, it's a short skill. You go up there, you spend the short skill, you make the roll, and success, you get extract from the board. So that model gets removed. They are now considered to have survived, and they're put into a pile separately. You count up for objective points afterwards about how much you extracted from the board. So basically, how much escaped.
Yep.
the balance there is that first turn, there's no point limit. Second turn, it's capped at 30 per model, and third turn's capped at 20 per model.
Ah, right. Okay.
If you get the ticket in there, you can extract any point model. So if you get a ticket to a tag, you can extract the tag on turn 3.
Yep. Okay.
So it's that balance of how much do I leave on the table versus how much do I extract, because if I don't extract enough, I don't get victory points, but if I extract too much, then I don't stop my opponent from extracting more.
Yeah, it's very tricky and interesting the way that he's done the limitation on who can be extracted when, and then they get around it is you've got an ID, but I believe there's only one ID per.
There are 2 IDs. They are not restricted to who can pick them up.
Right.
However, if you pick it up, the opponent now gets objective points for killing that model.
But you can only extract one ID from each console, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Each console has one ID.
Yeah, one
If
ID.
you extract it, you get an objective point if you successfully get the model holding the ID off the board. So extract it.
Yeah.
The opponent gets an easier 1 objective point if they kill the model holding the ID. You can hand the ID off, but if the model with it dies, it gets pulled. It goes with them.
Hang on, what?
Oh, so you can swap the ID. You can hand the ID off. So you could have a cheap specialist go over
like a supply box.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Except if the model with it dies, the ID goes away.
Ah. Oh, really?
So once the ID is in play,
yes,
it's permanently that player's. They only get the objective point if they get it off the table. Your opponent just has to kill the model with it.
Right. Okay. But you can obviously you can hand it off to some a larger point model.
Correct.
In order to get them off the table and get you and bag those points, because it says at the end of the game have more army points extracted. At the end of the game have one or more extracted civilians. Now this is the
So now it's the lovers.
The lovers.
Okay. So there are 4 civilians.
Star-crossed lovers.
There are 2 pairs of star-crossed lovers. They are deployed diagonally from each other on opposite sides of the objective room. And you get points for extracting civilians. So basically, civivac them, and if the model who has them in civivac extracts, they extract with them.
So it says at the end of the game have 1 or more extracted civilians, 1 objective point per civilian?
Correct.
Yeah.
There is a bonus if you have extracted a pair of lovers.
Pair of lovers.
So if you extract both the blue lovers or both the red lovers, then you get a bonus point. Of course, still maximum 10.
Maximum of 10.
Yeah.
And they're on opposite sides of the table, so it's quite tricky to do.
Correct.
Right, yeah. But you don't have to extract them at the same time.
No, just at the end of the game if they're both with you.
If they're both with you, yeah. So this mission, as you can probably tell by us still kind of bumbling our way through it, there's a fair bit going on.
It's complicated. I think once you get on the table, it flows pretty well.
Yeah, I reckon it would.
But yeah, it's a narrative mission.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think and it's funny, there's been a few missions, like 2 or 3 missions, I reckon, that have a similar mechanic of extracting something from the drop shipping. This one you talked about in the last episode, extracting escape, I think maybe it was something. No, it's not that one.
Right, I think there's a third one that I think came in late.
Yes, there is another one.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see players play with this mechanic multiple different ways and all in interesting and fun ways. So this one's great. Thanks so much to Dante. I feel like we're doing a lot of Melbourne or Australian ones. This is just coincidence. That's not, we're not
a lot of them are runners up, but not the first.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yes. Okay, so we'll go on to the next one. So we have. Do we want to do? Or do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's just move on. We're running long anyway, so we can skip that one.
Okay, so we'll move on to. This is a new one that was added by at the end. So this one's called Expunge.
Yes.
Right.
So premise is pretty simple. Grab data packets, upload them to servers on your opponent's side of the board.
Yeah, so the board looks like it's similar to the Frostbite one, I think, where you've got a not quite similar to the Frostbite, where you've got a bunch of consoles in the middle, one on your deployment edge, like capture and protect, one at the edge of the exclusion zone, one in the middle, and then same on the opposite side. And then you've got two, I think, consoles, I guess we call them.
They have antennas.
On the 12-inch line, on the center line, 12 inches in from the side of the board.
Yep.
And then an exclusion zone, but a 6-inch exclusion zone, which is a bit different as well.
So overall, the concept of the mission isn't that complicated. It's not, I almost say it's not that novel, but it's the details that Ethan adds in here. So, normally in a lot of missions, we've got a random console in the middle of the table. We only score points if we hold it at the end of the game.
Yep.
So he decided, let's give that something to do during the game. So if you control the console during the game, your specialist's roles to activate other equipment get a bonus mod.
Yes, I like this one.
It's not game breaking, but it means that the console actually has purpose the whole game. It's not just, oh, it's turn 3, I need to rush and touch that thing.
Yeah, because there's no actual. Yes, you get a point for controlling the console, but yeah, during the game you get a +3 to your whip or your other models to extract a data packet from the servers, which are the ones up the middle of the table.
Sorry, extract from the antennas.
Oh, extract from the antennas. Sorry, yes.
And that's another thing that I like about this. So you need a specialist to extract the data packets.
Just like supplies.
However, anyone can deliver them.
Right, and you've got to deliver them to the servers, right?
Yes.
Your opponent's servers.
Your opponent's servers. So you can have a specialist extract the data and then give it to some speedy grunt and have them race in. Additionally, you don't have to make a roll to deposit the data.
Oh.
It's just a short skill. So you can have speedy little pseudocide troop go, here's your data packet, run up there, I touched it, done.
Right. So
doesn't matter if you died, I touched it.
Right. So upload data packet while in silhouette contact with either enemy server. A trooper may upload a data packet in their possession by spending a short skill without needing to perform a roll, which is really good, right? It removes that I just need to I rolled a 17. They just go beep.
Well, it also means your opponent has to be more protective of their servers.
Yep.
It's not just, well, if they get there, they'll make a bunch of whip rolls and I can see them, so every time they try, I'll shoot them. This, they just have to run in and touch it.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously need the short skill in order to place it, but it's not. There's no failure state. There's no role there. So the main objectives are to upload a data packet to the enemy server closest to your deployment. So there's obviously two servers. The one that's furthest away gives you the most amount of points. You can obviously so it's 4 points if you upload a data packet to the enemy server farthest away from you, which is like a big chunk of points. 2 points for the one a bit closer to you. If you upload more, that's another 2 points. And then if you can control the console in the middle, that's another 2 points. And then finally, there's one classified objective. So nice little spread there on different varying levels of difficulty.
Yes.
4 and then a bunch of 2s.
So there's one thing that I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not. So I left it as is. There's no restriction on where you can upload the data packets. Meaning that you can upload 2 data packets to the same server.
Oh. Which, does that affect the scoring?
Oh,
yes.
I think
2 points for uploading more.
Well, you still only got 2.
Yeah, but no, it says at the end of the game have uploaded more. So
correct, but each player only has 2 data packets.
Yeah, but you can upload them both into the same server for the same points.
Oh, what I mean is that if their back server is really well protected,
yes,
you could potentially just upload twice to the near server.
That's what I mean.
It's less points.
Yeah.
But it might be feasible, and the other one might not be.
So, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, and whether or not it's intentional or not.
Correct.
Yeah.
The reason I don't know if it's intentional is because it's also possible to upload twice to the back server for 8 points, and I don't think that was intentional. But this is one of those. I couldn't tell which one the author's intent was because there are arguments both ways, and I leave this one up to the community to decide how they would like to play it, or hopefully maybe we get some additional feedback later from the author.
Well, I mean, counting up the main objectives, right? So we've got 2 for uploading the closest. That's 4 4 for uploading the furthest, that's 6.
Yeah.
Another 2 for uploading more, so that's 8.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the game, control the console, it's 10. So you're already at 10 before you even get to the classified objective.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, yeah, because it says that. Each
Correct.
player has 1 classified objective,
Yeah.
but only if you have less than 10.
Yeah.
So the classified is really just a bonus.
Correct.
Okay, so that already makes 10. If you say you can get 8 from uploading to the furthest deployments, then you literally only have to get a classified to get 9.
Correct. I think if I were to change it to... I would say once you can only upload once to the far server, but you can upload twice to the near server.
Oh, okay. Or you just say each server may only be uploaded a packet to once.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's locked or whatever. Just to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This one's really good. This was a later edition, so I didn't have much time to read over it. But I'm glad that you had a look at it. Because
Simple,
I think
a lot of good details.
Yeah, I think it's really, really, really good. So thanks very much, Ethan, for that one. All right, we are coming towards the end. We only have a couple more to get to. We wanted to get to this one because, again, it actually got a little bit of mention from CB. We won't say exactly why, but we did get a bit of a mention from it. And this one is called Payload. So this one is from, I'm going to butcher this, but Bartiger Strategi and Tristan228. So thanks very much, gentlemen, for bringing this one in. So this one is based around what is, I think you mentioned it in the last episode. Actually, it's in like an Overwatch. I think Val mentioned. Val mentioned it's like an Overwatch style where you have this payload, which is an objective, I guess, in the middle of the table, that has an 8-inch bubble of control, but also a 4-inch bubble of nano screen.
Yes.
That you have to dominate each round. But what makes it interesting is not just the nano screen, but the fact that whoever dominates it each round, it moves in the opposite direction.
Correct. So it moves away from whoever dominated it.
Yes.
So it makes it more difficult to continue to dominate and easier for the opponent to take it back.
How far does it move? It moves,
I believe, 4 inches.
6 inches. Moves 6 inches.
Oh yes.
Or 4 inches is in a 150 point game towards your opponent's table edge, ignoring any intervening terrain. If the payload cannot be placed on that spot, move that payload laterally the minimum distance until it can be placed, making sure distance between payload and opponent's table edge remains unchanged by this lateral movement. And if neither dominate, it doesn't move.
Yep.
So that means it'll move 18 inches if you dominate it all 3 rounds. So you'll end up...
it could end up... Well, the third round doesn't really matter.
That's true. Oh, yeah, true.
Because it can move 12 inches... So it can move to the edge of your opponent's deployment zone.
That's true, yes. Yeah, third turn, it doesn't matter, because it's the end of the round, because the scoring is something like... each game round, dominate the payload. There is an extra bit for your extractor, who we'll get to. At the end of the game, have the payload completely inside your opponent's half of the game table. So that's just obviously an extra bonus point if you at least get it once. At the end of the game, have the payload completely inside your opponent's deployment zone. So you can get to the opponent's deployment zone.
So basically, if you dominate all 3 rounds, then it'll be in your deployment zone.
At the end of the game, it will.
Yes.
It'll move.
Yeah. So it'll matter for scoring purposes. It won't matter for moving purpose or claiming
at the end
purposes.
of each game round. Yeah. So at the end of game turn 3, it moves after you've already dominated it.
And then for the other one, if you dominate twice and they dominate once, that means it'll end up on their side of the table.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you get 1 point per round, and then you get points based on who dominated more, and that's decided by where it ends up in the end game.
Yeah. So we mentioned the extractor at the end of the deployment phase in initiative order. So it's just similar to Master Breacher. I'm pretty sure they're almost
identical.
If the extractor gains a marker state, the extractor adds +1. Oh yeah. So this is where we get to the scoring. So it says the extractor adds +1 to their trooper value for dominating the payload, which gets us to the dominating
trooper value,
which is. This is something I've never seen before, and this is something similar to Ships in the Night that caught me off guard because I read it and said, "Oh yeah, domination." However, this is not domination in the way that we're used to. So the payload is dominated by a player if they have a greater trooper value completely within within 4 inches of the payload. A trooper's base must be completely within 4 inches of the payload to contribute to the player's value, blah, blah, blah. Now it says trooper value, right? So each trooper in a non-null state has a trooper value. Troopers with silhouette size of 3 or less have a trooper value of 1. Troopers with a silhouette size of 4 or greater have a trooper size of 2. Troopers with the baggage special rule increase the trooper value by 1. This also applies to the extractor, who gets a +1. So this is
kind of in between Ships in the Night, where Ships in the Night is a very simple, easy to count.
Yep.
You just go, dun, 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 I have 3 models, you have 2 3 models, you have 2 troopers, therefore 3 dominates.
Yeah.
This adds a little bit more nuance to it,
Yes.
but it's still a lot easier than adding up army points.
That's true. And you could and you could tell at a glance as well, like, oh, that's an S3 model, that's
Yes.
1, that's an S4 model, that's 2, that's a tag, that's 2, baggage, etc. It gets very easy.
Yep.
Where I am a little bit unsure about is how, in the same way as Ships in the Night, 1 tag can be outpointed by 3 taggers.
There's also some issues with things like flashbots. Flashbots are cheap, but they qualify for 2 points.
No, they qualify for 1.
Oh,
they're silhouette size
sorry,
3.
the cellular 3. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
You'd have to get to baggage bots.
You have to get baggage bots S4, but then that also is somewhat counter. It doesn't. It's not actually that great because, like you say, it's a 4-inch. It's 4 inches of the payload, so it's an
Yes.
8-inch bubble. 8-inch.
Oh,
It's a 4-inch radius.
correct.
Right now, 4 inches. Right. If we look at a 55 mil base, which is like a baggage bot,
Yeah.
It's 2 inches.
Yeah.
So that's already half the size of that bubble. And it says they have to be completely in sight.
Yeah.
Now, depending on where that payload is, you've got terrain in the way, you've got buildings in the way, you've got other models in the way.
Yep.
Good luck trying to get more than one S55 mil base in there. Which then makes it really difficult to, okay, I've got a tag in here, it's 2. I can literally just squeeze in 3 S2 models and meh. I get that, right?
Yeah.
I get the point. I'll beat your tag, and obviously the tag's more durable. It might survive,
Yep.
but for the purposes of like going second, moving 3 cheap models, 3 small models in there, it's pretty. I don't know if I like it, and I think the fact that you have to be completely within makes it even harder.
I like the idea of completely within, but the 4-inch radius on a thing that already has its own radius can be rough. It's not a huge area.
The fact that it's got an 8-inch bubble around it, but then it's got a 4-inch.
So the 8-inch bubble is the exclusion zone.
Oh, right. Okay, we missed this bit. So there is an exclusion.
There's an exclusion zone that's an 8-inch radius around the payload. The exclusion zone moves with the payload.
Right.
So you can't. It doesn't matter where it is. You can't combat drop onto it.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And then in deployment, you obviously can't deploy anything.
Yeah. So
inside. Right. Okay.
The 4-inch bubble is
The nanoscreen.
nanoscreen and the scoring area.
Right. Okay.
So
I feel like they could just make this an 8-inch, like the whole thing be 8 inches.
Yeah.
And maybe make the nanoscreen. Actually,
I think the nanoscreen's good.
I think the nanoscreen's
4 inches.
interesting because, again, like what we're talking about with Rob's mission and trying to make the table not be like just an absolute killing field, is sort of solved a little bit by this nanoscreen because you can't get into total cover because now
Correct.
But you can always at least be in cover.
It means regardless of where it moves on the table, it is defendable because everyone who is hugging it has cover.
Yeah. I feel like I would change this to allowing so long as your base is majority inside the 4 inches, or make it the same size as the 8-inch exclusion zone, make the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just to make it a bit easier and less finicky for the larger models to move in there, because I wouldn't be running like a lot of large models in this one. With the 4-inch, 4 inches just seems too small to me.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I think this is a fun mission. It's a moving objective, which is something we've never seen before. It's got nanoscreen. It's like the authors thought about it. And maybe they ripped it off of Overwatch. I don't know. I don't play video games, but
I don't play that either, so I will defer to Val, who said it is.
yes. So yeah. Otherwise, I think this is good. I would like to play this one absolutely, and That's my only criticism is maybe making the area a bit bigger.
Yeah, I do like, and you can start to move on.
Yeah.
Both with Ships in the Night, Payload, where they both had different ways of dominating zones,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked that not as an alternative, or not as a replacement, but as an alternative. So you could have missions that work on points. You could have missions that work on numbers. You could have missions work on size, and give you different takes on what you need to bring to that table to dominate that area.
Yeah, no, I really like all these ideas that we've had so far, but movable objectives, either the ones where players place their own objectives, like the one that I wrote for Secure and Defend.
Yes.
That whole thing was based on, I'm sick of seeing the same thing, same objectives in the same place all the time, and having to like figure out where my train's going to go to fit where the objective is, so it doesn't become a pain in the arse. Let's just let players place their own bloody objectives.
Yeah.
Give them a prescription, a set of limitations, so they don't just place them wherever they want, but allow players to move things around.
Yes. Well, that both makes it easier on TOs for train, easier on just people tossing out a train to play a one-off game at Game Store.
Yeah.
But also, it makes the missions have more variety when they're replayed.
Yes.
You're not always going to the same objective in the same place. You don't know how far you have to move.
That's right, yeah, because I was thinking, okay, yeah, sure, every table is different, so the terrain, the mission, the objective will be slightly different to get to, but it's always in the same place. You always know I am 4 inches away from this objective. Whereas, yeah, if you can place them, you don't know. 4.5, 5, 6, whatever it is. It can be like really close to the edge of the table. It changes things, and I think I really like that.
Yeah, and you could react to the train. So instead of the train having to accommodate the objectives, now the train contributes to the novelty of the objectives.
Yeah, and the player can then decide, oh, this is a good little place to put this because I can nuke it in, or it's near some cover so I can use it to defend it. Or, hey, I'm going to put this on my opponent's side in a position where I've got climbing plus, I can get to this objective.
Yes.
You can start, it becomes a bit of a game, and it's a game in a game, which I really enjoy. But anyway, it's
like HVTs, but you interact with them.
Yes, which again, you said in the last episode, more people are doing that too. Yeah. So, CB, yes, please do this. All right, so and the last one we're going to talk about tonight is extrication. So I had this one last minute because I wanted to talk about a particular mechanic in this. Thanks first of all to Gaz Grubb of the Fast Panda Gaming, who is another excellent podcast out there. They're on YouTube. They've got battle reports, and they're a bunch of really nice guys, so go check them out. The main part of this mission I wanted to talk about was the extrication points. So we won't get too much into this mission. It's got a lot of moving parts, similar to what we discussed in other missions. We've got supply boxes, we've got consoles to hack. We've also have this extraction zone, which is basically once you've extracted the supply boxes, you've got to get them back to this extraction zone to remove them from the table. So it's like supplies, but rather than holding on to them at the end of the game, you just have to get them back there and remove them. And also you get points for dominating your extraction zone. Now, the point I wanted to talk about was, what is the extraction zone? The extraction zone is, pull this up, pull this screen up. They are the 5-inch blast templates that we see, that we use all the time in our games and for decompression zones. They are outside of your deployment zone and on either side of the table, sort of like 6 inches from either side of the table, and they are your extraction zones. And what I really like about them is they are physical areas on the table where you have to defend, and you have to get the supply boxes back to. They're also, because they're not just like a small console, 40mm console, they've got a bit more size to them. They interact more with the table. They're basically designed to be, I think the author's notes were essentially like a flare going up. So they act like smoke in that sort of regard, in that they're infinite height. So they will touch other buildings. So you can be like, if you place this next to a building, then it'll still kind of extrapolate up. So you can use it on different levels. And it just is a nice little way to have use of these blast templates and using them actually as objectives. Because currently, obviously we use them for like missile launchers and rocket launchers and things like that, but we also use them for the dreaded decompression zones.
Yes.
But this is like a decompression zone kind of, but it's actually an objective.
Yes.
Which I think is a really nice mechanic. So I think I would like to see that one used more in games, because it's easy to visualize, right? It's also the author also mentioned, because usually they're like these flat discs, they don't really go so well when you're trying to put terrain around them, because like they don't bend. He recommends that he has these 3D printed like rings that are detachable, so you can like detach them and put them.
Yeah, you can put down segments of it so you can see where the rest of it is.
That's right.
Even though they're building there.
Yeah, so that's really handy. And I think I just basically like talking about it. It could be a way for CB to continue using some sort of decompression zone if they also count as zones of operation.
Yep.
Because it creates like we were just talking about payload there before. Creates an area of nanoscreen. What if we had like an objective that was a saturation zone, but it was also an area you wanted to dominate, rather than being these, because like we play these games, right? We play Capture
so
Protect.
Often
you're just like, throw them away.
Like, gentleman's agreement, we don't play with them.
Yeah.
Or like, we just finished deployment. We forgot our decompression zones. Well, it's too late now because we'd have to rewind the entire deployment.
Yeah. So imagine if the mission was created where those decompression zones were actually where you scored points.
Yeah. I guess your point to bring up the one we did skip, heat stroke. So heat stroke, brief summary. It's
sorry, Hibiscus.
Sorry, it is. It is a variant on Frostbite. I think it smooths over some of the points on Frostbite some people don't like, but the point I was trying to make, they take the decompression zones and make them relevant to the objective.
Yeah, so it's inserting here decompression zones.
Yep. So normal decompression zones, except for, because this is, of course, heat stroke, you're talking about overheating, too much heat. Well, if there's no atmosphere to conduct that heat, so the decompression zones are safe zones that you can't turn off against the heat at the end of the game.
Ah, yeah, right, okay. I did not know that. Oh, yeah, so it does say, it is not applied to any model that is totally inside a decompression zone.
Yeah.
So that is a nice and interesting way of making use of a terrain zone that I'm going to just say most people don't really enjoy.
There was another story that used them as a defensive measure, because you could... it's hard to describe it. There are multiple deployment zones, and some of them touch each other. Like your deployment zone will touch one of your opponent's deployment zones, and the author used the templates as ways to protect your deployment zone from intrusion from the opponent.
Whoa!
Because you could put those templates inside your own deployment zones.
Right.
So because you had deployment zones that touched each other, you could use those to kind of corral your opponent into certain routes other than over others.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. No, this one, heat stroke. Yeah, we weren't going to discuss it because it is very similar to Frostbite, and I think it has done the rounds on TTS. I believe. But it is kind of like like you say, it's like Frostbite's hotter brother.
Yes,
I think is what was described as.
Yes,
and I think it does get around a few of the sort of issues with Frostbite in that it uses quadrants instead of the exclusion zone in the middle.
Yeah, you don't have strips.
Yeah, it's not strips, it's quadrants. There's still an exclusion zone, but you're not fighting over the exclusion zone, you're fighting over quadrants.
Correct. And that also means if you turn on a heater, no matter which heater, it heats the same amount of the board.
Yes, it's not this like weird strip.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I heat that one when I heat my whole entire deployment zone?
Correct.
Yeah. So that kind of gets around some of the things I don't like about it. It still obviously favors things like heavy infantry, remotes, tags, and things like that.
Yes. Although, because they heat whole quadrants, it means if you destroy one of those cooling units, there's a lot farther for your opponent to move to get back to another one.
That's true. Yeah,
it's
unless you're right on that.
You destroy the dead zone. I'm going to take a step back and I'm fine again.
Yeah, true. And I think as well, because like in Frostbite, if you lose one of your own ones, sure you've got one to fall back on, but but if you don't have that one, you have to get all the way to the other side of the board.
Yeah.
Whereas at least in this one, you can move into your opponent's quadrant instead.
Yeah, in this one, there's less distinction of whose is what is
Right.
which.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't kill you. You don't necessarily own it. It's not yours,
Correct.
but it won't kill you.
There's also no zone in this, like there's in Frostbite, that can't be heated or cooled.
Yes.
The entire board can be cooled in.
Similar to that, it's just the difference is the heaters, or sorry, the cooling units are on the deployment zone edges.
Yes.
Not in the consoles are still in the middle, but the heat coolers are on the deployment zone, sort of in the middle of the deployment zone.
Should price this way. The author specifically used quarters of the table as the reference in here, not quadrants, because quadrants typically end up being just the four in the middle.
Yes.
So they were very specific, saying they are quarters of the table.
Yeah, so it includes your deployment. It includes
correct.
the deployment zone, right?
Which in this case, then the coolers end up centered in each zone that they cool.
Actually centered in the on the table, not as like outside the deployment zone. Yeah, that makes sense. Which I really like this one. This one's really good. I would almost say from reading it, I prefer it to Frostbite. It just seems more balanced, more. It also implements some bits of Mind Wipe because it has a short circuit hacking program, which is very similar to the Mind Wipe hacking program.
Yes.
Because you use it to.
It's actually the same thing.
Is it the same?
It's the same thing.
So, and you use that to fry one of the a cooling unit instead of hacking it with a DACC weapon.
You can do both.
You can do both, yes.
So,
but you've got the option to do that instead.
Yes.
Which is nice, because that's one of the things I do like about Mind Wipe, because I don't actually like much else about that mission. I would like to see that one gone for the next ITS, just quietly. But anyway, that is all of our
honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Yes, it's getting.
It's a little later than we thought it was going to be.
A little bit later. Yeah, we were like, oh yeah, we'll knock this one out and
totally knock out a game and then go do dinner and then come back and not have to deal with microphones for a half hour.
Yeah, we'll do this one in an hour, no problem. Oh yeah, 2 hours later. 2 hours later, we're wrapping it up now. So that was it. We've done this now. We've done all the top 5. We've done the honorable mentions. We've done a bunch of mechanics. So it's really all I have to say is like a huge thank you to all of our authors, all of the submissions. You've all done a fantastic job. Thank you so much for your feedback as well that you've been giving us while we've been trying to decipher your missions and come up with suggestions. And we hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to us talk about these missions. And we know that even on our Discord so far, we've had a few people come back and say, "Oh, I didn't think about that for my mission." Like the authors have, responded to us and going, "Oh, you talked about something in the mission I didn't even consider before." So it's good, and this is like one of the great things, and one of the things that will never really come out about a custom mission until it gets played.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and not just played by people who don't know the author, who don't know what the author intended it to do.
Yes, because you can write a mission and we can say, this mission looks great. Like we were talking about Ships in the Night. We're like, this mission looks crazy, but it might just work. We played it and we're like, maybe not. But for different reasons, still good, but just not for different reasons.
Yes.
So we're really excited to look to release these mission packets to the wider community and hopefully get them played, get some reps up, get some feedback. Please join us on our Loss of Lieutenant Discord, or send us a message on Facebook or on our email at lossoflieutenant@gmail.com if you have any feedback from these missions. We will be releasing the whole packet very soon once we got
it should be out before this podcast gets out.
Yes, I think we just need to write a short forward for the packet.
And then 2 or 3 errors that we found tonight.
Yes, but just like a couple of things. But we've had so much fun reading them.
Yeah.
And
I've got
probably
them. One good read through left, but it is 68 pages and 35,000 words. I mentioned to Kev before, it's like 2.5 times as long as my master's thesis.
Oh man, it's we're doing good work. We're doing CB's work for them.
It has been worth it. They're all lovely missions, and look forward to seeing how they how they go when they're released into the wild.
Yeah, and if we haven't shouted out your mission on this episode or the last episode, that doesn't mean that we don't like the mission. It's all of them are excellent. We just like to say we had 36 of them, and we have covered half of them.
Yes.
Like probably less than half of them.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, with that, you've been listening to another episode of Lost Lieutenant. My name's Kevin.
I've been Nick.
And good night.